Hello, everybody, and welcome to July's Block of the Month. I am calling this the Patriotic 8-point star because it's a patriotic theme, not because it represents the star in the United States at all. It does not. However, this is July, and this is the star block that we have chosen. I have chosen for you to create for this month's quilt as you go star block of the month for our a year full of stars. Hello everybody, my name is Kimberly and I am the creator and artist behind Creating Hanley, the YouTube channel you are watching right now. Welcome back everybody to another episode of Creating Hanley, and in this episode we are doing this star block. We are putting it together. In this video we are showing the pieces. So in the previous video, in part 1, I showed you the fabric that you need and the cuts. So let's take a look right here. This is the fabric that you need. You need a background and you need the focus fabric, and this is it. You just need two. I chose white on white stars. Maybe you can see that for the background. And then I chose this Americana kind of bunny, ragdoll bunny with an American flag. So this is the fabric that I chose. This is a 4-inch square. So in the previous video, it shows you all the measurements. Now I did make a mistake. This is a 4-inch square. You need 4 of those. You need 8 2.5-inch squares. These are 2.5 by 2.5. You need 8 of these. This is a 2.5-inch by 4-inch rectangle. 2.5-inch by 4-inch rectangle. You need 4 of those. 2.5-inch by 4-inch, and this is a 2.5-inch by 6-inch. I said 8. You need 2.5-inch by 6-inch. 2.5 by 6-inch rectangle. You need 4 of those. 2.5 by 6-inch. So we are making a 4-patch. So if I show you this again as a template, we're basically making a 4-patch with these pieces. So you can see this unit right here is 1/4 of the 4-patch. So this unit, and then this is the identical unit, just mirrored. And then here's a unit, and then here's a unit. Now also what you might need, and I said this in the previous video, is a border fabric. Because without the border, it does not measure a 12.5-inch unfinished block. So for our project, a year full of stars project, every quilt block that we quilt as you go, quilt that we make a quilt sandwich with, needs to be 12.5 inches unfinished. So this is an unfinished block, meaning it's not sewn into the project. It is a block in and of itself. It's a standalone unit. Once we put the batting together, here's the batting and then the backing, and then we quilt the whole thing, that becomes a quilted unit that then we put into all of them together to create a project. And in my case, I'm creating a quilt, so like a bed quilt. So there you go. So I'm just going to set this aside because this is now our template. So I'm putting that right here for reference. Okay, now let's sew these together. So let's put these in a design that we can visualize before we actually sew it. All right, so we know these are our corners, so we can kind of scatter those around. Now we have 8 of these, so we just need 2 per star point set. So 2 star point set. And then this is really what creates the star points. Your focus fabric creates the star points. Okay, so we put these together as such. So there's that, and then a star point. And then so we have a short and a long. And then we have a short and a long. Uh-oh. There we go. It's a puzzle piece, guys. It's a puzzle piece. And then a short and a long. And a... Oh, what am I doing here? Oh, I forgot one here. So see, when you put the puzzle together, you can kind of see what's going on. So I'm missing one piece up here. So it goes like that, goes like that. It goes like this. Okay. And then I want this here and this here. And there we go. Okay. So you can see how this works. To the left, or I should do it this way. To the right of every white, these go together. So see how these are, maybe you can see that. These are the same. This is a 4-inch block and this is a 4-inch strip, and we sew that together. And so the color is on the left. It depends how you look at it, but you always want it on one side, okay? So, and the same with this. These sew together. These sew together and these sew together. But before you do that, you need to snowball. You need to make your star points. So do not sew these together before making your star points. So see, if I do this, now you can kind of visualize that's a star. Now that's a star point. Now this is kind of exploded, but you can see how the star points are formed. So you want, here, let me grab the template. So if I put this up here so you guys can see, do you see how the star points are formed? It's a V in the middle. So it's a V right there. So this is the same thing. It's a V in the middle. If I take this one away, you can see that's a V in the middle right here. A V point at the bottom. So we want the long sides of our color or our focus fabric against the big background squares. Okay? All right. Hopefully that helps. So, but what we want to do is form the snowball. So let me bring this back down again. So if you're using a fabric like I am, you want to make sure that your right sides are up and your the back is showing. So you put your right sides together, or color sides or fancy sides together. And so the back is up and then the back obviously is down here, okay? So each of these long points is going to be the same. So you want, remember, you want your color against the white background. So you're going to create your diagonal line from here to here and then lift this up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around. I'm kind of move these out of the way. I'm going to flip this around now and face me. So now I know that when I create my snowball right here, I want to sew top corner right to bottom corner left in the way I'm doing it. Now you can take a straight edge and mark from corner to corner. I'm just using a pen. But you just mark from corner to corner on your background. Oops, that didn't. This is a pen, so I might be out of ink here, or I'm not angling it correctly. You can use a fabric marker, you can use a pencil. All right, I don't know what happened with that. Here's another ballpoint. Maybe I should just use a fabric marker. Here's a fabric marker. There we go. Okay, so you can see this. Now I don't have to attach it to here, but you can see corner to corner. And you can do this ahead of time. You can make all of your lines on all of your 2.5 inch background squares. All the same. Okay. So you can do that. And this is real time, so go ahead and do that now for our quilt along. I'm going to try not to take so much time here, but this is what you want to do. Corner to corner. Just draw your lines on all 8 of your 2.5 inch squares. And then that might help your brain a little bit so you don't have to think about each time. You just already know. It's already drawn. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now you can separate these out again. So I'm going to take this apart one more time. Set these aside. Just set those aside. Rearrange these again. So these are I'm putting all my 6 inches together and my 4 inch strips together. 6 inch strips and 4 inch strips. Okay. So now I grab my 6 inch strip. I'm just going to work with all 4 of my 6 inch strips right now to start. So now I know that I drew the line on the back of the fabric so that I don't have to wonder, did I draw, which side is the front and which side is the back? I already know. The drawn line is the back of the fabric. Okay? So I want to do, what did I say in the beginning? I want to take my sew line from top right to bottom left. Top right to bottom left. So if I put this to how you see it, top right to bottom left. Top right to bottom left. This is how you're going to sew. Now remember, in a previous video at some point, I told you about how to sew, how to draw your line, and how to sew. So if you look at this very carefully, you can see that I drew the line directly into the corner there. Okay, that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that your straight edge is off the corner enough so that the pen width can fit directly into that corner, so that you have an exact line. So here I know I screwed up just a teeny tiny bit, but now I know I have a straight line from corner to corner. That is an exact line. Now, something else, another tip to keep in mind is we are replacing this corner, this little triangle of fabric with this color fabric. We're replacing the dark with the light, so that when I sew down on here, I want to sew just on, let me get a little pointer here. I want to sew just to the outside of this line. So can you see that? If I get this a little bit closer, maybe you can see that. So I do not want to sew directly on the line. I want to sew a little bit off of the line, so that when I take that back. It's not going to be this side. I take that back. It's going to be on this side. You want to sew on this side, on the side with the corner that we are replacing. Okay? You want to sew just a little bit, just like a thread width right along this part of the line. Right along this part of the line, so that we're replacing this. And this is because that fabric, that thread that you put on here, takes up space. And when you fold the fabric over, you do not want your fabric to be short. So as you can see here, when I fold the fabric exactly on that line, it is perfectly aligned on the back. Can you see that? How that is perfectly aligned on the back. And that is exactly what you want. So if I finger press that and fold it over, you can see where that fold line is. It's just to the outside of this line. Okay, that's exactly where you want to sew. So that when you fold over the fabric, that fabric accommodates that thread width. I know it sounds like, who really cares? But if you don't do that, it may make your blocks and strips a little bit wonky, which is okay. That's fine. You can always trim it down, but then you'll have to trim down every block to the same size if you want to be exactly precise. I'm not always exactly precise, guys, and that's okay. It's your star. You can do whatever you want. So let's just come over to the sewing machine right here, and you can start your fabric this way. Now you want to sew straight down the line, so that means your fabric is going to be a little bit tilted. It's not going to be straight on like this or like this. It's going to be a little bit at a diagonal, which is fine. Now I'm going to start from the straight edge, because if I start from here and I put this corner directly into this these feed dogs, the feed dogs may actually suck that fabric down into the plates here, and it'll be stuck. So you can use a leader if you want. You can use a piece of fabric that you already sewed on, and you can just start chain piecing that way. If you want to do it like this, you can. So I'll do a demo like this. So I know exactly where my needle is, and I have it on a slow pace, so that when I bring my first needle down, I know exactly where that needle is on the line, and where that needle is placed on the line that I drew. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Okay. So then I just take it real slow, and I make sure that I stay on the outside of that line. Try to keep it as straight as possible. And then when you sew off of it, don't cut your thread. This is called chain piecing. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. So remember, your drawn line is on the back of your fabric. So we do face side down, pretty sides down, top right to bottom left. Top right to bottom left. And then we sew just on the outside, this side, the pointy corner side of that line. So again, I can kind of lift up my presser foot here, make sure I know exactly where that line is, and then start sewing. And then you don't have to go this slow. I'm just doing this for demo. So you do this 4 times. Oh, I didn't even sew. Oh yeah, there's a faint line on there, but I already know. Top right to bottom left. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because this is real time. I am not editing this video. So you stop that and then just chain piece. Now also this line is fading because I used an air and water soluble ink. So it is called the Fine Point Disappearing Ink. This is the product that I'm using. Okay, so it is already disappearing as we speak. So you can see real time what that is like. Now I'm going to try to make this as precise as possible. Okay, now that is my 4 of the 6-inch. Now if I want to, I can cut that off here, but I'm going to leave this on. So this is my 6-inch, and I'm just separating these. And then also my leader, and I just put that there. So I'm separating these. Now you can see when I fold this over like this. This white part, sorry about that. This white part now replaces this back. Now, this becomes waste. Yes, we are going to have a little bit of triangle waste, a little bit of waste on our fabric. This part just flips over. You can iron that down and trim off that. Okay, but we're going to do that all together. All right, and now I want to go opposite. So I know on the long ones, I went top right to bottom left. So on these short ones, I want to go top left to bottom right. So I want this to be mirrored image. Okay? So mirrored image, and then you sew just on the outside of that, which is the corner this way. So just on the outside of this line, corner that way. Okay? It's to my right. So if you're doing top left to bottom right, the corner that you're replacing is on the top right. So you want to sew your line just on the outside of that. So that means, do you see how this is now in this angle in the machine? That's what you want to do. So the long one went in this way, like diagonal to the right, and then the short one is going diagonal to the left. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you have directional fabric, you can figure out what direction you want to use there. So we're doing top left to bottom right. Top left to bottom right. And so just on the outside of that line. All right, top left to bottom right. So on the outside of that line. So you want to make sure that you're lining up all the edges. All the edges. Make sure these are absolutely perfectly lined up. Okay, here we go. And then, oh, that one's going to be a little bit wonky, I think. Same here. Line up the edges, so just to the outside. All right, now this one I can sew directly off because this is it. We've done. So you can see how chain piecing works. So this is how chain piecing works. It just creates this big old string, these flags. Okay, so now when I put these together, you can see how these sewn lines go this way, and then these sewn lines go this way. Okay, so they should all be the same. Okay, now when you open them up, they go like this. Check it out, guys. There we go. And then when you eventually sew them together in your project, this is how they create the star point. And then you put the corners on the sides. And do you see now how that star, these form the star legs? So there's your star points. Perfect. All right. Now, before we get to that step, we must trim off all of these. So you can cut them with your scissors if you like, 1/4 inch away. So here's my sewn line. Here's the waist that I want to get rid of. Now, if you need to visualize it so you know in your brain how this works, just fold this over like this. And now you know that this white piece takes the place of this corner, okay? And so that now becomes your new strip unit right there, okay? Now, you can, if you want, trim with scissors 1/4 inch, just like that, and then iron, finger press or iron this open so that now this becomes your new block. Now, I made it a little bit wonky there, so I'm going to have to trim that, probably square it up. I'm going to have to square that up, okay? So you want to do each one of these individually. And if you want to, you can use your rotary cutter and cut, okay? But because I have this acrylic topper right here, I cannot do that. So I'm just going to do this with you right here like this. Just trim. Now, if you really want to, these go in your crumb box. So if you really want to, you can sew right along this edge, and then that creates a half square triangle if you really wanted to do that. I'm not going to do that right now because that is time consuming, and I don't necessarily want to do that. So I'm just going to set these aside. These become crumbs for me. For you, it depends on what you want to do, but you can go to my playlist on what to do with crumbs and see what I've created with crumbs and what you can make with crumbs. So these are teeny tiny little crumbs. Put those in your crumb box or whatever container you use to save your crumbs, and then you can make another project with those at a later date. And feel free to watch any of my crumb videos, scrap videos, crumb block. I have more crumb block videos at this point than scrap block videos, but scrap block videos are coming. But I tend to save these teeny tiny little pieces and make more fabric or more projects with these. Okay, so let's take it over to the ironing surface right here. And I like to use fabric that has been ironed. I like a flat surface when I work. So I just have a hot iron here, and I use my painting spray bottle, and I just spray. Instead of having water in here in my iron, I just spray with my paint bottle. Okay, now once you set that seam, open up the white part, and you can put if you want to, you can set your seam either way. You can set it like this, where you have this kind of shadow underneath that, or you can put it down towards the dark side so that you don't have that. Now, it does matter. It may matter in the end when you have all these little seams that you have to put together. So right now I'm just going to, actually I told you I was going to just iron to the light side. I think I'm going to iron, I am ironing to the dark side. So we'll see how that works in this project, because in the other project I ironed it the other way and it worked out fine. You can also, as an option, if you want to, open your seams. So you can always, if you want to, open the seams like so, and then press those open so that you have all of your seams are open like this, and that means you have less bulk. When you're putting seams together, you have less bulk, okay? So that is an option as well. Do whatever works for you. And after you make one block, if you really like these blocks, you can make more blocks and then experiment with other ways of your, ironing or pressing your seams open, or your seams in a specific direction, if that makes sense. Sometimes I just talk more to fill the time while I'm doing these mundane tasks. So sometimes if it doesn't make sense, that's because I'm just trying to fill time. And I hope you can see in the video here. I don't want to, there we go. Maybe you can see that. Okay. Also, there is no reason to swirl your fabric, meaning there is no reason to do this. Please do not do that. All you want to do is press. Just press. Just let the heat of the iron and the weight of the iron do the work, because swirling the iron around like that only loosens and stretches these fibers, which you want this intact. You don't want to expand your fabric. Okay, now you can see how I sewed that incorrectly. A little bit, I sewed it a little bit too far to the outside. So you can see the mistake there, how I sewed it should be just a little bit to the outside of that. Here, let me get a pointer. So you can see where I drew the line. I really wanted to sew right here. Instead, I sewed out here. Okay, can you see that? Of course you can. But here's my line that I wanted to sew just right to this point. I just wanted to sew right there. And instead, I made my sew line out here. Now you can see the result of that. The result is, now I have this big ledge right here. And it makes my rectangle wonky. Okay? So, if something like that happens to you, you have a choice. You can rip out the stitches and re-sew it correctly, or you can just leave it and, trim up as best you can. But when this becomes wonky, then this becomes wonky. And it may make all of your blocks, it may make this block too small, which throws off the entire block, the entire finished product. So let's just take a quick look right here. It should be 2.5 by 6. I'm sorry, this is the 4-inch. It should be 2.5 by 4 inches. So if I measure, this is 4-inch, this is straight edge, this is just a little bit where I can trim that, and then this is still 2 inches and I have room. And even up here, I still have the 2.5-inch mark, so I'm good. So if I take it this way, that means I can trim that up with no problem, and it still is the exact 2.5 inch wide by 4 inch. So I'm good. But if you do that on your block or rectangle or unit or whatever in any of your pieces, make sure that you can trim away instead of having to add. If you have to add fabric, it's no bueno. It's not going to work. That means all of your blocks have to be trimmed down to a smaller size, and that can potentially throw off your entire block and your entire project. So just make sure if you make a mistake like that, that you're able to correct it without too much trouble, okay? I hope that helps. So this is the same one. This is a little wonky, but I am able to trim and still maintain the perfect size, okay? Also, ironing correctly helps with that same issue. Ironing also shifts your fabric in a certain direction. Okay? All right, so there we go. So I'm going to set these aside. Now we have these 2 units. Now, if you want to, now is the time where you can take your rectangles and trim them up. Now is the time to do that. In fact, this one is a big, so I may actually do that. So I'm just going to take this all the way over here. Hopefully you guys can still see that. So I'm just taking my big ruler, but I'm just coming over 2.5 inches by 4 inches. So I'm just using this 4-inch. Oh, you can't even see that. 4-inch and 1, 2.5. So I'm just using this portion right here. Okay. So I want to make sure that my outside of the ruler is the area that I'm going to trim. So let me help you with that too. So this I do not need to trim. This side I do not need to trim either. The only sides I need to trim is this white part right here. So I want to make sure that I put my ruler down in such a way that I am able to trim the outside of that. I do not need to trim this side. This is a perfect side, okay? That's already 90-degree perfect edges. So I want to make sure that I am lining up my 1/2 inch line right here, 1, 2.5 inch, and then I know it's dark and you can't really see it, but this is my 4-inch line right here, so that all I have to do is trim this side and this side. Okay, so let me do that for real. And hopefully that helps somebody out there in newbie quilting land. All right, so I'm going to trim that and trim that. Because if you see these trimmings, it's quite significant, actually. And now I know that this block is a perfect rectangle, 2.5 by 4 inches. Okay? So you can see how that now lines up, and that lines up. All right. And that actually is quite significant. Okay. Now, just for giggles, I'm going to check these others because if they're off significantly, I want to make sure that everything is the right size. And it's not off significantly, but it's just a little bit enough of a trim. And this little piece of a trim, see how this is relatively insignificant. That it really, I don't have to trim that. That is unnecessary, but I just wanted to show you the difference. Okay? All right, so those two are done. Now, you can see on this one as well, that's a pretty big lip right there. So that's going to be a significant change in size. So again, make sure that the right angles are lined up. And yes, now we have a perfect rectangle, and you can see how significant that was. That's actually pretty significant. Okay, there we go. So now I know by trimming that all my rectangles are exactly the same, and I should not have any alignment issues when I'm sewing my quilts. Okay, or my block. All right, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to do the same with these, and I know I'm taking time in the video to do that, but let's all do this together. That's part of the quilt along. Now, this is on the opposite side, so we're going to have to go a little left-handed here. Or however it works for you. Okay. So, trim those up. And I can hear right now, I can hear somebody shooting off fireworks. At the time of this recording, it is July 1st. But it is a Saturday. So people are getting an early start here in Pittsburgh and shooting off some fireworks. All right, that is perfectly lined up. Okay, this one does not need a trim. That is great. That does not even need a trim. And then this one right here. Okay, now I hear the rain. Now I hear the rain coming down. So they shut off fireworks just at the right time, right before the rain. Because that's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets more rain than Seattle, guys. Bet you didn't know that. Pittsburgh gets more rainfall than Seattle. Yep. Okay. Now, these are all perfectly squared up. Okay. Now, let's bring this back over to the machine right here. So now we can sew our units together. Guys, this is going to come together very quickly. Now that we made these rectangle units and these rectangle units, now we need to put our 4-patch together, and then you're going to see how easy this comes together, okay? So let's put our squares out again, just to visualize how this is going to go together. Now remember, the long sides, the color sides, the long sides go against the white part, Okay? The long sides go, oops, that doesn't work. What am I doing here? I gotta think about this. Think. How does this go? How does this go? All right, but we know this goes against like that. Oh, I gotta think. How does this go? Oh, yes. Okay, it's gonna go like this. All right, now I'm getting it. Okay, it's a puzzle piece. I gotta think about it. So this is gonna go together like this. Okay, so we create this little star right there. Okay, now this is a long edge and a short edge. So now I need a short edge here. So long and a short go together like this, like that, and then a long edge goes right here. Okay, do you see how that works? And then a short edge, so it creates a V. So you're creating a V. So now this is a short piece. Now we know a long piece goes here, and we're creating that V. And then that goes there. The long piece goes here, and then the short piece goes there. All right, and there we go. Fantastic. Now, we don't have to worry about the long pieces just yet. We're going to place the short, so don't worry about these. I'm just going to explode this out a little bit. Explode these out. So we're not worrying about these long pieces. I'm putting these in the center here. We're just going to work with the 4-inch rectangles and the 4-inch squares. Okay? So now we take the 4-inch rectangles face side down on the 4-inch square, like so. And then we sew a 1/4-inch seam allowance there. Okay, come over here. Now we know this part, we already know these two go together. Place that face side down, 1/4-inch seam allowance. We know this goes this way. Face side down, 1/4-inch seam allowance, and face side down, 1/4-inch seam allowance. Now, I'm getting these out of the way just for now. I know which way they go, so we're going to put those back together. But in the meantime, let's just sew these together. Now, I'm going to put them in upside down because I want, how do I want to do it? No, I'm going to do it like this. I changed my mind. I'm going to sew it in like this, so that I have a line on my presser foot that I'm going to align up here. Now, if you want to, you can use your line on your machine deck if you want, or you can line up a piece of tape from here. Now, I have a ruler here, but you can line up your washi tape, or if you have, painter's tape, you can measure out a 1/4-inch and do your 1/4-inch tape if you want to do that for your ledge. You can also use a different type of presser foot that allows only a 1/4-inch along here. So however it works for you. I'm just going to do it like this because I'm not changing my presser foot at the moment, although it's not very difficult. Actually, let me show you. If you have one, let's see. If you have one, it looks like this. The presser foot looks like this. So you can see there's a little ledge right here. Let me put it against something white so you can see. So it has a ledge that comes down, and your fabric rests against that ledge so that when you sew, it is a perfect line every time. In fact, let's use it. Let's just demo it, okay? While we're doing this, we can demo that as well. It's not that hard. That's how you switch out the presser foot. Just push that off to the side. Now I'm going to clean this up so you don't need to see that. And let's just use that. So that edge, now I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can swing this around a little bit better. Maybe you can, but that edge, maybe you can't. Can you see that? So the edge goes right to the outside of that fabric. As I rest it down, it's that this part, I don't know if you can see that. This part is holding this edge of the fabric in place. Okay, so let's just see if this works for the video or for my... That is not a 1/4 inch, actually. Now, what if I do... All right, let's just do this for the video. This is not a 1/4 inch, but we're just gonna do this for the video so you can see it. And then I'm just gonna re-sew it again. So you can see how that worked. It created that stitch line. See how that is not a 1/4 inch? So I'm gonna redo this. I'm gonna take this out. And I'm gonna put this back because this is my favorite. Now, if you're using a Brother, I have a Brother SE625. This is the presser foot J. And I really like the fact that this has a see-through part to it. I appreciate that. All right, so we're gonna do this again. Now I know exactly how to line this up. I know where my needle goes into the fabric, and I know where to line this up. This little line right here on the outside edge, and that is gonna give me a 1/4 inch. Now, I was a little bit short on there. I kind of went a little bit wonky. Now, if you have one of these tools are pretty cool. This is a 1/4 inch measurement right here. So I'm just going to take this to here. And the way you measure it is from the outside to the inside edge. So I'm just going to put this right here. And I can tell that I'm a little bit shy of a 1/4 inch. The whole way down, I'm a little bit shy of a 1/4 inch. That's because I sew a little bit conservatively. So I'm going to create a better so again, that's the 3rd time that I'm sewing. Now I'm going to take this measure tool and I'm going to lower my needle and I'm going to look. I'm going to place this right here and see where the edge of my needle is, where my needle goes in, and where the line on my presser foot is. So I know I need to move this over just a little bit, and now I'm in the right place. See, to me, I feel like that is a lot of fabric lost in the seam allowance, but that's what it is, so that's what we're gonna do. 1/4 inch. To me, it looks like a 1/2 inch, but now let's just compare. So the first line was way too narrow of a seam allowance. The second line in the middle line there is me being too conservative. And then the third line, the outside line right here, is the exact 1/4 inch all the way down. That's a straight line. So when you open it up, it is definitely on the 1/4 inch. Okay? That 1/4 inch line. All right. Now, because I like to work with flat fabric, I am ironing that down. And this is what it looks like. Okay, we're going to do that with all of these. All right, how much time are we? Are we at 49 minutes on this already? That seems like a really long time. Okay, but that's what we're doing. We're going for it. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Chain piece. Whoops, that was not a chain piece. Okay. And then that is because, oh, it's so long because I put in a whole bunch of extra tips for you guys. I taught you a lot of extra stuff. So hopefully that's helpful. Now, those of you who have been sewing for a long time, you know those tips and tricks already. So just skip over those. You probably have some of your own. So feel free to put your own tips and tricks in the comments below so that other people can learn as well. Maybe I can learn, maybe I can pick up something too. So I set my seam and then I open it up and flatten it down. Now this is the unit that we have right here. Set my seam, open it up, flatten it down. Okay, there's that. Now, I want this to open this way. Yep. Okay. Now, the last portion that we need to create our patch is this. Okay, so it goes like that. Okay, so it kind of looks like a flower a little bit right there, just like that. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing. Pretty side down, line up this side, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure that when you sew over your seam here that it doesn't flip up the wrong way that you don't want it to go. All right, now here we go again. We're gonna do this like that. And it stopped raining and I hear fireworks again. Those people are persistent, I'll give them that. Okay, 2 more for our patch. Like this and like this. Okay. Right? Yep. So you guys have a safe and happy 4th of July. Let me know what y'all did in the comments below. Let me know if you had any trouble making this star, if you have any questions, or if you have any tips of your own. If you have an easier way to do something, the iron, or for your seam allowance or whatever. Now, we have chain pieced these together, and these are our 4 patches, 4 squares to create our finished project. So here we go. Here's a 4 patch. Okay, so that's 1/4 of the project. 1/4. Okay. And again, I press these open. Now, my iron is cooling off because I can't hit the button. So what happened with my iron is it tumbled to the floor and it turns on when I plug it in, but it shuts off after an hour and this button no longer works. I cannot just turn it back on. I have to unplug it from the wall and replug it, and then it turns back on again that way. So I am not going to take the time to leave my chair here to go do that. So that means that my iron is cooling off, so I'm not getting as crisp a iron, press as I would like. I'm just working with this broken iron for the time being. And then eventually I'll get a new one, but I want to research irons first to see if I want a fancier one or if I'm just going to get another $20 iron, because I seem to go through irons rather quickly. All right, now see how we've created the 4 patches. See how we've done that. So let's take a gander here, put these together just like so. Look at that, guys, look. All right, so now all we have to do when we explode this is put these two together, and once those two are sewn, we only have one more line to stitch, and we put those two, and that's our final project. So right sides together, line up this edge, line up this edge. Now, if you want to make sure that these joints come together, then you really want to pay attention to how these are lined up. These seams are lined up, and the same on this side. So make sure these seams are lined up, and if they are ironed in the same direction, what you can do is just iron them in the opposite directions, which I may do that, and that will help nest. That will help nest your seams. Again, my iron is like too cool to really do anything right now. Okay, so, yep, just like this, I'm going to line up this side and this seam and this seam, and line up this seam and this seam as best I can, making sure I line up this point right here, these two corners. Okay, now I can always trim off the outside, so I'm not going to line up that as much as I want to line up this and these seams right here. Now, these are going to be a little bit off. I can tell already. They're going to be a little bit off. Okay. But I'm a little bit okay with that. Okay, so there's that. And now, same with this. I know these two go together. Right? So if I open up that, yep, that's correct. So now I want to line these up. Okay. And it's not going to be perfect. As much fussing as I'm doing right now, I already know it's not going to be perfect, so I just want to sew it. Let's just get it sewn. Okay, it's a little bit wonky. All right, now separate that. Open it up, and this is a great place to iron right now. Look at that. Now you just put these two pieces together. And again, this iron is pretty much super cool. And if you iron, you can iron the seams to the opposite sides so that you can nest these easier. So you just nest those right in there. Nest those two pieces. And then just line, and then you can also line up, so you have this to line up, and then you have this seam to line up, and then you have this seam to line up. Okay, now if you feel it's necessary, go ahead and trim these two blocks, and then that will help keep everything less wonky, more in alignment. And then on the back, if you have seams that are flipping on the back, make sure they are in the correct direction that you want them to be. Okay, guys, there we go. And there is our star. We made it. Oh my gosh, we made it! Yay! Okay, so that was a lot of instruction to make a simple 4-patch, right? But hopefully that helps. And you can see it needs some trimming. But remember, you're gonna add your borders, and you can use a contrasting color, you can use a coordinating color, you don't have to use the same colors. But I'm going to put my border on the top here, so I may lose a star point. Like, that one would probably be okay, but I may lose a star point or two along the way, depending on how close to the edge they are. Like this one, I'm probably going to lose this point. Oh, I'm probably definitely going to lose this point. Yeah, definitely this one. Okay, so when I add my border around, so I'm not going to do it on camera with you, but what I do is I trim, I find, a piece, trim it to size here, sew 1/4 inch, and then flip up, and then I trim right on the opposite of that, and then same thing, line up this edge, sew 1/4 inch, and then open that up. Now, that increases this size, so then I take the rest of my fabric and I make sure that I overhang this edge and this edge, both, and then same with over here. Okay, so do border on one side and then the opposite, and then once you have that length, then you have length for your side, the extra sides there. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then now you have your backing, so you have your quilt sandwich. You have your front, you have your batting, and then you attach your backing. And then you start quilting. So you start your quilt however you want to do that, right in here, whatever thread you want to use, maybe a different color, coordinating color, opposite color, whatever works. And then do your quilting, and then don't trim it yet. Add that to your stash, to the projects that we've completed so far, and then that just adds one more month to your Sew a Year Full of Stars. Everybody, have a great and happy 4th of July. We'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.